This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Conversation on KTN, and those of you who are following, getting where you need to go this morning, silent listeners, but engaging in the conversation all the same. We'll turn things up just a little bit into this next point where it's necessary for us to talk about a number of things. That through the fuel crisis or through the protest that happened Monday, the question then came in, leading Kenya from the ground or from the skies, and that the president was away, and then questions about what happened to the deputy president, who should have then been able to take over in that case. Well, okay, so let's talk about it, and then to understand, okay, well, where are we, or does it really matter? Benji Ndolo is a political analyst, and he's here with us this morning. Good morning, Benji.
Good morning, dude. It's my first time here, and I don't know why it's the first time. I should have been here a long time ago.
You should have.
And I really support you guys. And I don't know if you saw my tweet yesterday. I said, tomorrow morning, I'm on the best platform in Kenya.
Look at you.
Yeah, because it's a serious place. Morning, Dennis.
Thank you, morning.
Yes.
Karibu sana.
Topical, serious stuff.
Karibu, thank you.
Asante.
Thank you for that. We're glad that you can make it into the room today.
Thank you.
Alenga Torosterdt is not his first time in the Situation Room. Policy and governance analyst joins us this morning. Good morning, Alenga.
Good morning.
How are
you
you
doing?
Very well, thank you.
Fantastic.
Karibu sana.
I just want to echo what Mwalimu has said.
Oh,
Mwalimu.
Benji, did you know you're Mwalimu?
Exactly. Never. My mother was a teacher, but yeah, I guess in a way in these platforms, by the way, people, we have a lot of students that watch, so in a sense, you're teaching.
Very true.
Yes.
Very true.
Yes.
All right, Karibu sana, both of you.
Thank you.
The things that we'll be talking about today. So let's get into it. But it's your first time, but you would already know that we go around the African continent. We come back from a particular country every week with their proverbs.
Yes.
I get the chocolates from Dennis.
I enjoy
the rest
that
of you
part.
get the proverbs. We'd love to hear your interpretation of this one.
Yeah, so we are in Gabon, a beautiful country, rich in resources like oil. They mine that, but they do not refine that. They're not far off because they border Congo. And one would hope that with our new refinery that we plan to build, maybe we will help process that so that Strait of Hormuz ceases to be a problem.
Exactly.
To us, right? But let's go to the proverb. Even a leopard cub has spots. How would you interpret it, Benji?
That is such a straightforward saying. It's like how they say a good day is known early in the morning. Yeah, it's the same way they say siku njema hujulikana asubuhi mapema. The spots cannot be mimicked, they cannot be faked. The inner character, even when the cub is 15 grams and 15 days old, you can tell the ferocity of it. This will be a ferocious leopard.
That thing wild, man.
Exactly, yeah.
Alenga,
so
how would
it's
you-
such a nice saying.
How would you interpret it?
I think I'd interpret it in the sense that everything streams from the ordinary.
Okay.
Nothing extraordinary.
Well, we went philosophical.
Yeah.
Well
Nothing
said.
ordinary.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, let's get into it. Was it ordinary that when the country is probably still, whether there are lower levels of volume in terms of crisis, that the president being away, that the person who would then sit in his position to kind of quell the storm was
Is it
quiet?
Tumbi?
Oh, okay. Okay, I was going to say it's quiet, but Benji said that is it Tumbi? And I'm sure we'll get to that in a minute, but let's start with you, Alenga. Was that normal? That should have happened, or are we just reading too much into that current situation? It was okay that cabinet secretaries, who are an extension of the executive in one way or another, then, took the reins. Okay, and then Itumbi. But is that normal?
A very deep confusion came up because you would ordinarily think if we have a fewer crises, the energy ministry will be top of it, the treasury perhaps. But then we had conversations from people that you wouldn't really trust them to be speaking about your energy situation in the country. The void was felt, and this then goes to the question of, do we have a government where it's only the president that can speak, it's only the president that can to solve situations, and what is the power that the people that have been put in those offices by the president wield, even in his absence. Lastly, even by the time we got sort of a piecemeal solution for the energy issue, we had the Minister for Interior speaking, and the Minister for Energy was just masked over there. So you really cannot understand the expertise in him that was sought when it felt that it was necessary. So then for me, what I would want to wonder silently, even as I walk away, is can the government function without the president, or we always have to wait for the president? And we actually heard the Minister for Treasury saying, when the president comes, when the president comes. So I don't know, because if you look at the Constitution, our president is more of a ceremonious president.
Yes.
Like he doesn't have to be a hands-on person. So then I think it's a big indictment to the officers in his government.
I mean, I look at it, Benji, from a point of where Kenyans in all this, and I come from a point where before the strike happened, the government, including the president before he left, knew that Matatus were going to strike.
Correct.
But you look at the response or lack of it thereafter, and we are in a state of perpetual reaction.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
never, ever get to handle business before the crisis hits. Where are Kenyans in all this? Or are we just to deal with the aftershocks?
We're using so many words here, Ndu, Dennis, to state the obvious. And that is, or to avoid stating the obvious. And that is, Kenya is not being governed well. Kenyans are not being governed well. You're asking where are Kenyans in all this? The answer is nowhere. And I can speak here authoritatively because unlike Alenga, who's a good friend of mine, I supported the Deputy President, William Ruto. We gave him the benefit of the doubt. I actually brought here with me today a small essay to guide me through the interview. It's titled 10 Reasons to Part Ways with Ruto. And I'm looking at your paper, page 14. Elias Mokua, government's indifference to Kenyans' suffering is appalling. Absolutely. So we're using a lot of words to just state the obvious, and that is misgovernance is so painful. People that are out of touch with reality do. A lot of these young people, the Gen Zs, the employed even, are underemployed. They live in slums, Kiandutu and all over. Nairobi is ringed by slums. They don't earn enough, no toilets, no this, no that, etc. The solution cannot be to do affordable housing where you're also cutting deals for yourself as a ruling elite. You cannot be out of touch and increase fuel prices by almost 100 shillings in a month. Where will the money come from? 100. This has an obvious knock-on effect on food, on transport, and that the government doesn't understand that or chooses not to understand that because guys are in the jets. I had Ndu trying to defend and say, we're not sure. There was a Hustler jet scandal in 2013.
Well, I was talking about the dancing girls from Seychelles. I don't know if those girls were on the plane. That's what I was saying. But okay, we can keep that moving. Go ahead, Benji.
You see, there's a pattern here. It cannot be coincidence that, Alenga says the presidency is ceremonial. Let me remind you, and you're in the media, when there were rains like crazy sometimes last year, and schools were to open the next day, and everybody was waiting for the announcement, which finally came at 2 a.m., that schools are not opening after some have already left.
Yeah.
And they had to cancel and come back. And the reason is, we talk to these people all the time. The minister was trying to reach the president and couldn't issue a statement without the approval. That can only be the only logical assumption. And so William Ruto is detail-oriented, he's hands-on, he's what you could call, for lack of a better word, marauding, patronizing even. And this is how the government is.
But is that because then you have to ask questions then about what the role of Parliament is.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because just a couple of days ago, in fact, on Monday, when the roads were shut, when the vehicle, the public transport,
Private.
I'm not going to, the public...
Private,
Yeah.
public.
When the public service vehicles declined to get onto the road because there is no public transport system in Kenya, when that happened, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Gladys Bosch-Sholay, said, this is not the president's issue. So she seems to be countering what all of these other individuals saying later. When C.S. Mbadi says we're waiting for the president, when they said we're waiting for the president, she said, this is not the president's issue. This is a parliament issue. We heard Jerry Minor also say, you know what? Parliament needs to reconvene, have a conversation about what needs to happen. We make the law, we make the budget. This needs to be fixed.
But it's an incompetent parliament.
So they
You
can't
and I
do
know
the
that.
work. So they can't do the work, is what you're
They
saying.
obviously can't do their work, number one. And number two, the parliament is usurped by the executive. Now, this is not comfortable talk, but this is the reality. And this is the reality that Kenyans have to grapple with because guess what? It is Kenyans who put these parliamentarians into office. He's trying to go to parliament. This is very good food for thought for him. Because parliament is completely ineffectual. Parliament is corrupt. They've tried to sue me before for saying that in a newspaper. And it's not the people's house anymore. It's a house of special interests. And all this is at the expense of Wanjiko. That's my problem, dude.
I mean, Alenga, can president be separated from parliament? Because you look at, I'm going to give an example, say Finance Bill 2024. Go push this thing. Parliamentary group meeting, State House, we see this thing being pushed. We look at decisions thereafter, Parliament again brought to State House. What happens? Finance Bill is thrown out. We want to impeach the Deputy President. Parliament, go do this thing. Push it, public participation till the middle of the night because we have an agenda. Can the president be removed from parliament and it being ineffective?
Absolutely. That is how it's supposed to be. But there is no single day that the president has put a gun on any member of parliament and told them what to do. They have voluntarily decided to do what they do. I always say the most easiest way to differ with somebody that you don't agree with is just by choosing to do the right thing. Because the right thing is cut on paper and you know what you need to do. The tragedy of our parliament is something we cannot even speak about in one show. Like the Parliament of Kenya discussing its demerits requires a whole year of a sabbatical just to talk about how bad our parliament is. And that is why people like myself are trying to get into that parliament, because things cannot be changed if we don't step up to change those things. If we reach a situation where Matatu owners can fight for us, then that shows how bad the situation at home is, So I think the parliament has all the instruments to check everything. It has the power for delegated legislation. It has the power to switch and change everything that doesn't make sense. And that is why I say, if you read our constitution clearly and see the roles of the president, it's so ceremonious. But when we expect the president to be going round and fixing everything, there's floods in Nairobi. We want the president to come and clog the drainage, and we have a governor, and that governor has a chief officer for environment, has all those people. So I don't know what people do in public office in this country, because if you are, even the basic units like the family, if you are the father and you have to go to the kitchen, you have to cut the fence, you have to do the laundry, then what exactly is happening in that home? Because I believe everybody should touch where it matters to them and fix that. So that is why it feels totally unsafe to hear a whole cabinet secretary saying he's waiting for the president to come back. It's like, you're in a home, there's no food, and we're saying we're waiting for daddy to come. That's the mentality.
And mommy is there. Deputy President Kithure Kindiki is in the country. He didn't go to Azerbaijan. He didn't go to Kazakhstan. He's in Katharakanithi, which, okay, give or take, if you put him in a chopper, he could be in Nairobi in 15 minutes.
But this is Kenya Kwanza.
He was sympathizing with us. He was even telling us it would have been worse.
If what happened?
Yeah, if they didn't intervene, the fuel prices would hit 300. You had that conversation, right? Yeah. So then it pains to just ask yourself, what really do people discuss even in the cabinet? What do they discuss in parliament? Have we ever really had our parliament convene for a matter of national interest? Yes. Like you see the parliament full as they would be when they are impeaching someone, full as they would be when they are passing a finance bill that possibly they have been given money somewhere from some quarters. We need to bring order starting from parliament. And the weakest link in our governance is the parliament, because unfortunately, that is the only arm of government that is vested with the power to check on the executive. But they have become friends, sometimes throwing themselves over the executive unnecessarily. And that now brings a bigger problem to the judiciary, which now looks, like...
under capture as well.
It really looks like they are in argument of who does what. And then it seems like the judiciary has to come in to stop people from, hey, stop the nonsense in the room. So then when the judiciary does that, we start questioning again, can judiciary stop this person from doing this function in the full understanding of the concept of separation of powers? So then, therefore, I think the bigger problem is we are hangovered in the old constitution, where it was the president that would come to build classes, the president would come to open a bridge, the president would do this, the president
and that is
would buy a
Ruto's
bus.
style.
So
that's the part you're not saying.
It's because Ruto does that because we are forcing him back into the old constitution.
No, we're not forcing him.
No, we're not.
I'm sorry. Are we really forcing him back? Because
he would like the old constitution.
He voted
against the constitution,
which I carried with me. What would you say when Ruto comes to, let's say, my area? Just as a president, he has a right to do that. And my MP stands and says, tunaomba utununulie basi ya ishule. What does the president do? You are taking him back to the older constitution where Moi would say, I'm giving this for this.
Well, he's got a 17 billion budget. What is he going to do with the money?
So it is actually our members of parliament who are returning the president there. You have seen them gather and say, maybe members of parliament from this region, we are going to State House. To do what? To ask for
17 billion there.
Buses.
Are you saying
there's 17 billion there?
Are we placing an even larger indictment on Parliament today that that they don't understand their role and responsibility?
Absolutely.
That's true.
You have CDF. Why are you going to State House to ask the president to give a bus for your local school? Why are you going to Parliament to ask for a bridge in your local constituency? You have that budget. If you did that, then the president has nothing to do in your constituency. The president will not be on top of vehicles coming to launch a tap in your constituency if you didn't invite them.
As the chief guest.
The problem is complex.
Yeah.
And it's a cultural problem.
Mm-hmm.
There's a book I'm reading here, and the reason I'm reading this book, 1776, is because America is 250 years old in 2 months. And let me just share a small quote here that gives you the context of the problem in this country as I see it. This quote is by then the General, George Washington. Let me just read the quote quickly, Dennis. The reflection upon my situation and that of this army produces many an uneasy hour. This is Old English. When all around me are wrapped in sleep, few people know the predicament we are in. George Washington was trying to put together an army to fight the British and establish the United States. This is in January of 1776. And as a leader, and this is what true leadership is, he wasn't sitting there, and I give this example often about the founding fathers. He wasn't sitting there thinking about a helicopter. There are no cars even those days, or about money, or about wives, or allowances. He was sitting there thinking about a dream about a country. So this is what leadership is, Ndu. This is what leadership is. It's not these things that these guys are doing. I'm going to run around and do private jets, etc., and live my best life. It is a leader has to be unable to sleep because you realize if fuel hits 270, guys are literally going to walk to work and be unable to eat. So for me as a leader, I cannot sleep at night in my Lavington home. This is what we're lacking, and that's why what Alenga is saying is quite palatable, because even in Nigeria, where you come from originally, it's a complex problem. It's not a parliamentary problem. It's not a presidential problem. The problem is our society where, for instance, my friend Sakaja will not even sweep the streets of Nairobi, but he will rush to try and compromise the Matatu guys. You can see all the discussion on compromising, basically. I hear they're going to Mombasa. And there's many, many things coming out. I hear that, which is true, that the office of the former third president, Kibaki, is used by Dennis Itumbi. I mean, there's all these absurdities all across the room, all across the country. It therefore follows that you cannot have this kind of reckless style of governance and then have accountability. It cannot follow that you can have this reckless approach and have an largely incompetent cabinet, and then at the same time be abiding by the Constitution. So one would say, for instance, on this headline today, that the president removed Gachagua, who is a bad man. We agree on that, because you wanted a pliable man. And what even bothers me more, and I'm being a bit philosophical here, is we know that Gachagua is a rough man, is a bad man. What bothers me is that, we know this. I mean, for those of us that are political strategists, analysts, etc., we know this. What bothers me is that the reason Gachagua has continued to fight from the outside is because he feels he is victimized while the president is just like him. That should bother you. That should bother you. His argument is, William Ruto is worse than me. That should bother you. As a voter, as a taxpayer, as a patriot, we're extremely dissatisfied with the direction this country is going, a year to elections. And that's why you see everywhere, in every region, really. The president was in Moyale the other day, Mandera, did his rally. And as he's leaving, guys are just chanting one time all over the place. So it's not enough to just lie to him. It's what they need to do is take a step back and ask, why the disenchantment? Why the dissatisfaction?
Why do you think there is dissatisfaction with the government of the day? And if possible,
I wrote an essay.
Maybe difficult. Saying we can go through your essay, and maybe Dennis.
I'm actually going to publish it in your newspaper. So you'll give me someone for that after.
Let's look at the reasons that people are disenfranchised, dissatisfied with the government of the day. Because if what we're hearing is the case, and maybe something resonates with what you said, that a leader will not be able to sleep at night if there's the fear that the children of the nation will not be able to go to school. That a leader will not sleep at night if one person says, this thing that you promised people that was going to deliver health care is not working. And somebody
How do you sleep
died.
at night?
And somebody died because they did not receive health care.
Yes.
So there is a disconnect between what a leader ought to be doing and what we're currently seeing.
Correct.
What are the indicators that there's dissatisfaction amongst the people? I guess this is for both of you. What are the indicators that there's dissatisfaction from the people that should actually be hitting the nerve of leadership right now?
That's such a good question, Du. And I don't feel we can do justice to this conversation in the hour that is allocated. So we'll probably have to have another conversation. But very quickly, and I'll let Alenga chime in as well. Bottom up was specifically to focus on the small person, mtu mdogo.
Which you endorsed as well.
Correct. And which the president spelled out, and which there's evidence. You're a media house, you have all the footage, you have the manifestos, you have everything. To start at the bottom and not be about Mabwe Nyenye na Wadosi. I'm using the president's own words against him. Is the focus there? The simple answer is no. Now that he's the president, the focus is not there. Borrowing, the issue of borrowing, and I think I heard you guys talk about that when I was on my way here. Under Uhuru, the national debt went out of control and almost became a crisis that brought Kenya to its knees. Now, the reckless borrowing is what it does is it auctions the future of our children. Did the borrowing stop under Ruto? Again, no. So you can imagine we already had a debt crisis almost, and now the president is borrowing more than Uhuru did. Let me take a pause there and go to the last and really sensitive topic of abductions. And the less said, the better on this. How do you abduct and kill youthful Democrats? This is from 2024. They are the future. They are trying to get you back on the right path after you have derailed and you abduct and kill them, how do you abduct the Attorney General's son, Justin Muturi? So these kinds of things, these are just obvious blunders that will obviously drive people away from you and away from your agenda.
I mean, Alenga,
President is exposed, that's a fact.
Kenyans have been speaking about their dissatisfaction for a very long time. They have expressed themselves on the streets. Every other time, whether it's on social media using caricature, whether it is on coming up with their own apps where they're talking, whether it is through comedy, Kenyans have expressed themselves on how dissatisfied they are with what they're doing happening in the leadership circles. But is anyone caring? Does anyone look at this and say, these guys are saying something. We ought to change how we're doing business. We need to engage them even more. Or is it a question of we are in power, what to do?
I think the air of discomfort is all over the country. But then I try to confront the question even more by just asking myself, so who's going to fix this? And I think that's where we go wrong, because each one of us has the problem statement so aptly captured. But then we throw it to one man who sits at State House. That's where we go wrong. Because I believe all of these things can be fixed at the levels where they are supposed to be fixed. Benji has eloquently and so strongly put up the problem statement. But then I was listening to him to just find out now, where do we place the blame? Where do we start from, So I then imagine if our parliament woke up and did what they're supposed to do, what would happen? If some of these things that we keep pushing to the door of the president were just fixed at policy level. Let's say, for instance, there's a fuel crisis. Who really needs to talk about the fuel crisis? I am thinking in the energy ministry, they should ban the midnight oil. And when the president comes, they tell him, this is the proposal we have. Look at it and see what direction.
But how is that possible when the CS is incompetent?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So we tend to blame the presidency, not even the president, because even if we replaced Ruto with someone else, we'll have the same questions, and that person will have even more sleepless nights in that office than even the current president. Because if it is not happening at ministerial level, that you come up with a policy draft and say, we have seen the situation, we have listened to Kenyans, these are the proposals we think we can tackle them, 1 up to 3 or 5 or 10. And then you take this to Parliament, and Parliament deliberates on them. But then when we keep just saying, this country is doing bad, the president must answer this, sometimes. And that's why I say we are still hangovered, all of us, in the old constitution, because we believe even when children cannot transition to CBC, grade 10, the president must fetch out those kids from the villages. But what are the structures that are there, and how are these structures being harnessed? Do we have even the area education officer reporting which children have not gone to school, escalating it further to the next level, until it reaches the PS, the Minister for Education, and that is resolved? We want the president to literally go to Mukuru Kwanjenga, fetch kids who have not reported to school, and take them to school.
Alenga, my question was directed actually to Parliament. And why do I say that? Because even in the fuel crisis that we face today is because of the laws that have been passed by the very same Parliament that has put all these levies under this Act of Parliament that is being implemented today. Pretty much what EPRA is doing, everything else that is coming in there is from the Act of Parliament that there is. So whilst we look at the president and saying that he's captured Parliament, right? Members of Parliament right now are the ones who should be banning the midnight oil, because their role is to legislate, to oversight, and to represent Wananchi in that house. They should be able to wake up and look at all those levies in there and have conversation with the ministry and put in place changes that would make it easier for Wananchi. But how do you have a parliament that we say is captured by the executive think about Wananchi?
this parliament is not captured by the executive. This parliament is captured by personal greed. Because, like I said earlier, they throw themselves over the executive. Why would you gang up and go to State House and eat, and after eating you start begging for things and then you're given money like people who don't even earn a salary? That's where the problem is. And if we looked at the parliament keenly, if you want to know how serious this situation is, just tune into the parliament proceedings one day when they are not impeaching anyone, and see how many members of parliament are in that.
You obviously often always have a problem with quorum.
Yes.
But I want to ask a question about an appointing authority. We know that cabinet secretaries in the country at the moment, the mode for bringing them in is appointment by the president. There's nomination by the president. It goes to parliament. Parliament, what would be called a dog and pony show, essentially just says, okay,
exactly.
Yes, fantastic,
it's not a vetting.
you come. It's not called vetting.
Yeah, it's not a
and
vetting.
then everybody asks,
we are still going back to parliament.
Hang on. Hang on. And then you say, make your case, tell us how much you're worth, and then somebody smiles, and then they pretend to say that they're upset with one or two of the nominees, and then they, it's a waste of people's time, and then these people come back. Somebody said something yesterday, and I had to give it a thought, that today, with the cabinet secretaries that you have in place, you could actually play chess and move them around, and you would not see anything significant in terms of a change. No difference. You could actually move Dennis to where Benji is, and move Benji to where Alenga is, and move Alenga to where I am, and we can just
there's no difference whatsoever.
And there would be no difference. Exactly. That is a very scary thing. Because the assumption is that as you appoint people, you are appointing people with a certain element of know-how
and passion
to then execute. That's why it's called an executive. You get things done.
Correct.
You execute.
Correct.
But if that is not happening in line with the government's policy, in line with its foreign policy, in line with its economic agenda, in line with the political agenda, which you told people that you are going to do, if that's not happening, then we have a problem. But who sets the tone for how things are going to be done?
It's the president.
And who does the buck stop with? This is my question. Who does the buck stop with?
President.
Because when you talk about education, for example, somebody has been appointed to run education in this country.
By who?
That's who appointed them?
By
who looked at all of these people and said,
Exactly.
you know what? The person who's going to be able to fix this thing, those things you're talking about, to bring children out who have not gone to school, to make sure education officers are doing their job, to ensure that the Treasury has made sure they've given us money to send these children to school, to ensure that books are...
The buck stops.
Who looked at Alenga and said, you are the one who's going to be able to do that? Who did that?
Ruto.
So who should we ask?
Ruto.
If something is going wrong.
I think we may not really confront the problem so well if we looked at it from that direction. And this is my alternative view. What does the Constitution say about who should become a cabinet secretary? It says it should be a non-politician. It says that it should be a technocrat in that particular area. So when the president floats this list of politicians, non-technocrats.
Let's be blunt.
Yes,
for example.
It's not important to mention names, but
Why?
we have all the data. If the president takes to parliament this list that is full of politicians, non-technocrats,
Parliament should say,
have
we don't want.
had once the parliament say, this one we shall not vet him because he does not meet this very basic qualification as per the Constitution. So your list is blocked at this point.
Okay, I hear you,
Today-
and let me pull the thread
today
just a
we-
little bit, Alenga, if you don't mind. Yes. So let's move from let's take it away from this and say, give it an example. So today, you should then have an individual who is apolitical, who is a technocrat, and who has institutional know-how about how to run a particular sector.
Mining.
I mean, that's the person. Okay, mining.
Mining,
That's the
for
person
instance. Yeah.
that you give this. That if you have something like energy ministry, that you want somebody who can tell you that we have 5 different kinds of crude in the world.
Correct.
And you want somebody who can tell you that we should be pushing and championing conversations with the African continent about how we should all be using the same kind of crude, the way Thailand, China, and India do.
Correct.
Because as China, India, and Thailand, with huge populations, when you go to the people who are selling the fuel, you know what? You buy it at cheaper than you do from the rest of the world. Why? Because you people have an agreement. Those are the kind of conversations that your energy ministry should be having.
Correct.
So if you appoint somebody,
When they are asked, they say it's good oil.
who has no idea, these are the questions that Parliament should be asking and saying, excuse me, as far as we are concerned, this person does not know.
Absolutely. And that is that's my argument. Parliament in this country is like the HR. The CEO employs someone with a KCP certificate and he wants the person to be the ICT manager. What does HR do with this application? The HR should be able to advise the CEO that, well, you wanted this guy to be the head of
Bring us someone
ICT,
else.
but the basic qualifications, he does not even have a degree in ICT. Will the CEO still bring more lists of incompetent people? But because we have a place where we know we will sail through here, and I don't think at any point the president calls all the 390-something MPs and tells them, I am bringing this incompetent person, please pass them. The president just say, let's try our luck.
They use the majority leader.
Yeah, let's try our luck. And clearly, and if you have demonstrated time and again that you don't care, that you don't look at the documentation, that you don't interrogate, then it will be easier for the appointing authority to just keep sending guys to you because somehow you will have mercy upon them. So we have to have a parliament that stands and defends their affairs, first of all.
Benji, members of parliament you talk about today, majority of them come from political
But
parties.
sorry if I seem a bit angry. I'm just...
It's all good.
Anger's
It's
good.
all
Just
good.
a bit worked up,
Anger is
yeah.
good. So we have members of parliament who come from different political parties. And for example, we talk about the majority in the House today, right?
Yes.
And you look at that and more often than not, we see it is a directive that has come from the president telling them to go do exactly what he wants. So at that point, when we see failures in parliament, especially when it comes to legislation or even vetting of those who would get into various offices, who do we blame? The buck, we know where it stops.
I mean, look at, for instance, Speaker Wetangula. Don't even go to MPs who are junior people. Look at Speaker Wetangula, who is a senior lawyer in this country, who's a former senator himself, who's a former cabinet secretary. Speaker Wetangula is a former foreign affairs minister. Just imagine, under President Kibaki. And just look at his comportment. Look at his composure or lack thereof. Look at his alignment. And that's damning. If the speaker can be that way, who are you as a new MP, basically with nothing, with your first mortgage, to be independent, to be objective, to be logical, to be smart, to be constitutional? So this is how, the problem is the Kanuism mentality and the indiscipline. Because what Alenga describes is basically a mannerless parliament. A parliament that has no agenda for Mwananchi, that does not put Mwananchi first. A parliament that is not hardworking. A parliament that is not serious. A parliament that does not do vetting. And we're in the information age. You don't have to take my word for it. Just go to Dushawala News or Fox News or CNN or MSNBC and go look at the vetting process in Washington. And actually, I challenge you that if you saw the vetting that happens in Washington, you will be afraid to go to public service. And that's why, if you remember, even Trump in his first term, he never fully filled the White House. The White House was mostly, if you check the data and the White House under Trump was mostly half empty. He never filled all the slots because there were so many issues with vetting. The vetting is serious. The vetting is objective. There's no envelopes and all this type of stuff. And a lot of the guys that argue with what I'm saying will say, oh, but you see, you cannot compare Kenya with the US. Oh, you see, the US is 250 years old. We are only 60 years old. The issue of corruption, people talk about corruption in passive terms. Let me tell the future MP here, because I brought my constitution. Dennis, look at one of my favorite articles. And this is what I'm coming to, because he talked about what the constitution demands or how it defines the presidency, etc. As far as him picking appointees and whatnot. Article 226(5) Ndu. This is the constitution, not me. If the holder of a public office, including a political office, directs or approves the use of public funds contrary to law or instructions, the person is liable for any loss arising from that use and shall make good the loss, whether the person remains the holder of the office or not. Just imagine that's a constitution. That is, and I know that article because I worked for the Auditor General. This is a constitution on accountability in a country where we cannot build classrooms, but Kindiki is spending 80 million shillings on a chopper in a day. That is investigated, reported. That's not me saying.
80 million? Where is he going? Come on, Benji.
No.
80 million shillings on
Like
a chopper, where is he going?
Honestly, insane amounts, in frivolous manners, on by-elections, on all manner of things. And the point actually I'm coming to, Dennis, is as per the Constitution, if there's continuous violation of the Constitution, my question to you, Ndu, is the government even legitimate? I'd like to challenge you guys on that. If the government is continually, consecutively, conspicuously violating the Constitution of Kenya, sometimes people don't even know what the president is, people don't know who is running what, a blogger is convening meetings and ministers are answering under him. Is that government even legitimate? That government that we give the benefit of the doubt. That's a challenge I want to give you guys. Because I think we have a bigger problem than we're discussing here.
We'll look at a situation that is the reality for a number of people. And let's look at a situation where, just as an example, I mean, the member of parliament for Kithiani constituency sat here and he told us about, you remember it was in public, Robert Mbui. He told us that, you know, he had to take the mace one day. There were not more than 15 people in parliament on a day when the divestiture of KPC holdings by government was being discussed in parliament. Exactly. We also know the rules according to the constitution that you must have quorum of 60% to pass anything that then becomes law. Okay? That day, they had not met the threshold for quorum. And he was standing on a point of order that we cannot discuss this and come to a conclusion because we do not have quorum. Very simply put, we don't have enough people. The deputy speaker of the National Assembly on that day had him thrown out because he took the mace. And once the mace has been taken, it means that you cease all proceedings at that time. Correct. Because the mace is what essentially allows...
Symbolic.
It's symbolic. It allows these conversations to take place. Yeah. And he took the mace. But what happened to him? He was thrown out. And he was standing on the point that constitutionally we can't even be having this conversation because the rules of the House say that we must have at least 60% to pass this thing. It was passed. KPC already is a done deal. So
was it sold to Uganda, by the way?
Well, many people. Now they're having a conversation about who the CEO is. Anyway, the question here is, this is the same parliament that we're talking about today. That for what you're saying, Alenga, that a lot rests on their shoulders in terms of what they're supposed to do. Also, we know that politics is optical a lot of times and that there is an expectation. Many have... Show me one cabinet secretary today who has not been appointed if the optics say that they were in support of government and actually sang the song politically. So how do you ask people to do a job objectively according to the Constitution when the very appointment they sit on is because of who and how they supported in an election, for example, or who they continue to support? We have cabinet secretaries today, the one who is supposed to be making sure that your debt is paid, who are standing on podiums, campaigning every weekend.
Mbadi.
Today.
Let him sue me.
So tell me, how do we expect the job to get done? It's not just parliament. Cabinet secretaries campaigning. Others who sang the song correctly have been given positions. The work is not being done. And it doesn't really matter which political side that you're on.
And they're not performing.
The work is not being done. And these are people who are appointed by one person to get the job. If he appointed in good favor, he should be able to look and say, you know what? This is not working, guys.
Exactly.
Change the thing. But that itself does not happen either.
Exactly.
This is what I want to say about the whole issue. If you look world over, leaderships that are very effective in our judgment, they are so because their parliaments or their Congress houses are houses of order, and they exercise checks and balances effectively. If I, as appointing authority, or any president whatsoever, even if Benji became president today, there are things he may want to do as a person.
That'd be amazing.
But those things must go to Parliament. But if Parliament shows Benji that whatever you bring here, we are okay, we will pass it. For instance, I have said so many times that the Constitution is very clear on who becomes a CS.
Yeah.
But Parliament says we are okay with the list you have given. Don't worry. We will work on this, you know. We have seen people come for vetting and they cannot even express themselves.
Sure.
Some of them cannot even talk. But the next time they are gazetted because Parliament said it's okay. So continuously, this Parliament okays every rubbish that is churned in the system. But somehow, we will have to blame the president for it.
Yeah,
for me, I totally think if one day Parliament rose to the occasion, one day, the president would now, the next meeting, the president would bring a different list. For instance, we had the finance bill that was passed in 2024, which many MPs confessed thereafter they never even read it. And after the finance bill got resistance from the people and the country was almost heading into turmoil, they returned it back to Parliament and they started looking at it, relooking at it. And then the president now tells them, bring that finance bill. And then the president says in a presser, I have removed this, I have removed this. As who? But what was happening to the parliamentarians who were behind him? They were clapping. That finally you have shown us how we are supposed to do our work. So then where does the problem then come from? It is from the selection of these parliamentarians. If you look through all the constituencies, most of the constituencies, we elect people who have retired. They have been working for the last 30 years or so. They have accumulated money. Then they come and buy the vote in the villages. Yeah. Once these people come to Parliament, they have not come to change country. They have come to sustain themselves after retirement, to ensure they have medical, that they can fly to South Africa and any other countries for treatment.
While singing the song of the executive.
Yeah, correct. They are not interested in changing the country. So where does the antidote to this problem lie? Let's phase out these old legacy politicians who understand nothing but just primitive accumulation of wealth, polygamy marriages and all that after they have gotten the seats, you know, stealing money from their own constituencies and counties and building storied buildings in other counties. This is all that is happening. Right. And when you call these people to speak about country, they do not understand the cost of education because they have taken their children to school and they have jobs. Others have studied even abroad. They do not understand sleeping on a hungry stomach because they wonder, why did you sleep on a hungry stomach? They have been working for the last 30 years. When they retired, you took them back to Parliament. They have been there for 15 years in Parliament. Their car is being maintained by the government. It's being fueled by the government. When they drive back to the village to see you who voted for them, they are given mileage. They're told, sorry for going to your village, we will compensate you. These are not the kind of people that we expect to change the country. So it has to begin from us as the voters. Who are you sending to Parliament? Are you sending someone who shares your plight? Are you sending someone who is young enough to live through the consequences of their decisions? Or someone who is just waiting for God to take their lives?
Benji, you came with receipts today. You came with the Constitution, and you've raised it enough times. And the Constitution pretty much is the cardinal.
I love this country.
Yes, is the cardinal rule that everybody plays under, regardless of who you are in the country.
And what party.
And today we look at decisions that are being made that contravene the Constitution. Case in example, the individual who's been proposed to be the head at KRA is 62. He's overage, but we see that being pushed.
And then he's being sworn in quickly.
Which then asks,
which then asks the
so
question.
Is the government even legitimate?
Which then asks the question.
Okay, that's the question.
Which then asks the question.
Yes,
the Constitution of Kenya 2010, is it a suggestion to the minority of the country, whilst the majority respect the Constitution?
Yeah, that's such a good question, Dennis, as we move to wrap up. The problem with the government is they look at law and as a constitution as a mere suggestion. This is why there's so many usurping of powers of courts. This is why there's so much acrimony even within the judicial system, because the packing of courts with special interest representatives, with incompetent folks, etc. It's basically an affront on the constitution, and it is. In my essay here, I talked about basically no reforms, that the government has resisted logic. The police force, which calls itself a service, is running like a ragtag militia, headed by an unqualified, shy, cornered man after his predecessor ran away. That was the other guy, Kome, who ran away after the protests. And all these things are intertwined because the Constitution spells out how things should be done, how security should be run. And you find that security is being run. You know, there's so many, you guys were talking about killings in the morning. How one of your old guys used to say, one of your team here, that every time there was one fatality, the country is in shock. And now with every protest, you've just got people being shot indiscriminately. Unarmed, youthful, and it's their constitutional right to demonstrate. And who's doing that? The police. Because the police is rogue and answerable only to, as long as the president is kind of okay with it, then the constitution becomes a mere suggestion. And this is the way to dim the dream of the constitution, because 15 years after the constitution was passed, Dennis, we should have very robust institutions. We should have a very good parliament, competent, full of, proper senators that know their work, that hold the executive accountable, that redistribute money to cushion the bottom half. The bottom half who earn what? $1 a day? Are you kidding me? Instead, what do we have? We have all manner of wastage, largesse. And if I can just wrap up on that same line, when you ask me what the problem is with the government, Ruto continually castigated the 2018 handshake, saying, how do people campaign against you and then you bring them into government through the back door? And now, Joho is his minister for mining. You see, so again, in campaigning and taking a position and then turning around and doing exactly the same thing, while you're not, it's one thing to be out of touch as a cool kid who was born in status, etc. It's quite another thing to be a chicken seller who understands the issues of Kanjo, who understands the issue of tamarking and joblessness, etc., and how difficult it is to do business, but then gets to the top, and now you have this situation that obtains. This is exactly the problem, and it is a problem that must be called out, that must be analyzed, and most importantly, that must be fixed, Dennis.
It must be fixed.
We cannot just keep talking here on talk shows.
Yeah.
The problem on the ground is, if you do the cost analysis, as I have done under the oil price advocacy campaign, fuel prices are too high in Kenya vis-a-vis incomes.
Other countries. Yeah,
vis-a-vis
income,
services.
what you can actually get for them.
When you call me here next time, I'll bring the receipts and numbers. You'll be surprised, or you'll understand why a lot of Kenyans are going to bed hungry.
These are the conversations that we must have, and I think we started with them and said that it's probably an hour is not enough. Alenga Torosterdt says that, the problem is at Parliament. Be very careful who it is that you're bringing into Parliament, because the buck stops there.
True.
Benji says the country is in a mess, must be fixed.
Exactly.
And we must talk about it in order to get towards fixing. Thank you both, gentlemen, for
Keep
being
doing
here
what
this
you
morning.
do. You guys, the show is amazing. Thanks for having me.
Asante.
Thanks for having my brother.
Thanks, both of you, for being here.
Yes.
Conversations continue. Good morning at 8:08.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.